All right, welcome everybody. Today is the 24th of June, and this is the Model Registry bi-weekly call. This meeting is being recorded right now and is being governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. So as usual, we keep this bi-weekly update in order to keep tabs on the delivery for Kubeflow 19 and other topics in the agenda. I'm going to copy the agenda links in the chat as usual for convenience. If you want to edit some point, I saw that previous to the meeting, some people have been added some agenda item. I will go through the points, but please feel free to raise your hand or just jump in if you think that I need to delve into any details or more than anything. So first, just a heads up, I set the chance to the beginning of the meeting. We will eventually transition to the CNCF Kubeflow Zoom account eventually. So when that will happen, I will update the calendar and I will notify in Slack, email as usual. So just a reminder, please, to keep the Kubeflow community meetings calendar in your agenda so that in the case that we will eventually modify these connection links, the things will be there. So these we went through these agenda items. So Kubeflow 1.9 RCs, we don't have much updates as last time we went through the exercise for the anything that was still required for manifest or any other loose items. I didn't have the chance to just update the agenda coming from the previous release meeting. One thing that I've noticed here is that eventually I need to keep tabs on the release team draft blog post here. So I think that there was from Ricardo, thank you so much, already kind of like just a summary for Model Registry and for the presentation slide. And the component slide. Reference Kubeflow release meeting, which just happened. So just taking note mainly for myself and any of the other contributors here. So you all feel free to suggest any changes. You can refer to release team that they provided the pro forma here. Beyond that one, I don't think that we have anything specific. We were going through the exercise the last time. So we are taking this time now to start to look at the feedback that we received so far and eventually increase on the stretch goal, like for the custom storage initializer or any other documentation updates that we received in things so far. So this is, I think, a good segue to follow with you, Andrea. I thought that you've added this item. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matthew. Okay, yeah, there are a couple of updates on this front. First of all, I opened a draft PR aiming to improve what we discussed the last time. So just, I don't want to go into too much details in the PR, but this is something that we can discuss offline if someone needs some more details on that. But just to give a summary, I updated the Model Registry OCI, so the custom storage initializer, not exactly OCI, but it is CSI, wrong acronym. Anyway, to make it working with the latest Model Registry release that we rolled out a couple of days ago, I guess. And I'm planning to update the CSI to make it much more maintainable, such that we, for instance, adding some end-to-end tests that will actually ensure that the CSI is properly working with the changes that you are doing in any pull request, for instance. Right now, the end-to-end tests are actually automating the get start guide that there is already in the CSI folder. So, for instance, it will basically show a possible integration between the Model Registry and KServe using the custom storage initializer. This get start guide is likely a sort of different version of the guide that you can find on Kserve. So the walkthrough is quite the same. The only difference is how the inference service is created. And the end-to-end test is basically automating this flow. It can be improved for sure, because for instance, right now, most of the deployment YAML or also the commands are, let's say, are coded in this script, but they can be, moved outside in some custom files that can be reused in other scripts in the future. But I think that for now, it's enough to have something working. Unfortunately, the GitHub action that I created that will run this end-to-end test script is not working at the moment. I still need to investigate a bit more because I think there are some tweaks that I need to do in the kind configuration. It seems that the prediction is not working. I checked and it seems that the output result is empty. So maybe there is something wrong in the setup, or I don't know, some ports are not accessible from the script, so it's something like that. But I need to investigate a bit more. And the last missing part is related to the automation of the build and push of the custom storage initializer image. I was planning to add that alongside the push of the model registry itself, such that we have, let's say, we have both model registry and model registry storage initializer pushed on every push on the main branch, such that we have it. Regarding a possible release, or let's say official release, is something that maybe we can do in a separate workflow, because I don't know if we want to have it every time that we release a new model registry. Because I think that this is mostly for, let's say, a proof of concept of an integration between a model registry and Kserve. So I don't know if that will be something that we want to actually maintain in terms of official release, or if we want just to keep it, let's say, available for, I don't know, quick starts or any other example for users. But yeah, I think that's I hope a brief summary.
Thank you so much, Andrea. No, at least to me, makes perfect sense. And if anybody has any question for Andrea, this is the right time to raise your hand or to leave feedback. I think that, yeah, for the end-to-end, when it's like that, typically it was like maybe the serving runtime for that model was not available, something like that in Kserve. But this is, again, more of a detail. But thank you, because eventually, once this is stabilized, what a comment that we received is that for the current quick start that integrates Model Registry with Kserve for the Kubeflow documentation, it's I think that this can greatly complement that guide, because that guide was more like, oh, I can do this as a way to integrate. This is more programmatic way to integrate the two together. And so this could give a good overview of the potential strategies in order to integrate both the projects, or the components rather, there. So thank you so much for following up on that one. So let's say, if you need anything from anybody, don't hesitate to ping in case something is missing.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Matteo.
Right. Yeah, Ramesh.
I was going to ask you, Andrea and Matteo, how are we? I probably missed you were saying it, but how are we thinking of delivering this extension to the model registry as part of our offering?
You want to take it, Andrea?
No, it depends what you mean in delivering as an extension. I mean, this could be released as, let's say, a separate container image that we can technically release in Docker Hub, as we are already doing for Model Registry. It depends if we see this kind of, let's say, custom storage initializer as more like an example or a way how the model registry could be integrated with Kserve, but left to user decide whether they want to create their own custom storage initializer, which is something that they can easily create following the same approach, or if we want to, let's say, publish and maintain, let's say, unavailable and publicly usable container image for this.
So the way I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but custom storage initializer is already a feature in the Kserve, right? The way at least in my mind, I'm visualizing is when we put in a model registry, let's say, right? We deploy a model registry on a cube as a part of Kubeflow components. Maybe somehow we detect that there is a kube Kserve is available on that system, or as an option, we automatically create this custom storage initializer, right? And configure that as part of model registry, such that the user doesn't need to do anything more to use it, other than directly using whatever the URI extension in their inference definition. That's it, right? Anything else needs to be part of configuration of the model registry. Does that make sense?
I think that is, I will let Matteo speak about it, but I think that from a technical point of view, I think that's feasible, because it would be about just applying an additional manifest as part of the registry. It depends if you want to make it really, let's say, configurable from the user point of view. So that would be something that user have to apply if they want, or if that is something that is, let's say, behind the scene automatically applied in the system. Because keep in mind that as soon as we apply this custom storage initializer in the system, any URI that will match that specific model registry URI will be interpreted by the custom storage initializer. So it depends if you want to block user to use that specific model registry URI or.
Right. I mean, I would rather give them. I mean, it's a good way to not put too much onerous on the user to configure. I mean, it's if somebody is not using it, it's not taking much of the resources anyway. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. I mean, I'm open for other suggestions. So that's.
I think that maybe also here is that once the example is done, maybe we can check with the manifest working group, because this is more a question about integration. I think that the thing could be that if to me, I think I am on the same page as you, Ramesh. Is like we can just directly apply that one, because anyway there will be like just a manifest for custom storage initializer that even if there is no Kserve, if there is no Kserve, will not be taken into account. If there is a Kserve, it will be taken into account. And the question is whether do we want to put this manifest in the manifest of model registries instead of the manifest repository, or in the manifest of Kserve. So this is something that maybe we can discuss with the manifest working group. I've taken note here to also get their perspective. What do you think, Andrea? Does it matches? What do you think, Ramesh?
I think it makes sense. I mean, as you said, it will be just, I mean, for the sake of simplicity, it should be just about applying a single manifest. Yeah. So I think that's worth to discuss where to put this manifest.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, please.
One more question. I know you guys are also showcasing some OCI work there, Andrea and Matthew. Is there any status? Is there any update you guys can give to the community on that? I mean, custom storage initializer with an OCI.
Yeah, so that is something that eventually we will loop into the community, but I think it's more a discussion to wrap up the proposal and have an organic discourse, because that we can show, because that is a demo that as well with Andrea we did for the K-Serve. But what I think is missing is a bit of context more than here. So it's similar concept, but eventually it will be need to be tied to the OCI things, storage. Does it make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that is also more, that is more also in that specific case is more of a K-Serve concern, because the goal of that CSI is to say, okay, I need to retrieve an asset from a storage solution, which is an OCI artifact, while instead this CSI here that we are discussing has a different scope, which is the actual real location of the model is not known until the K-Serve will be able to contact the model registry, and the model registry will tell, oh, you will find the model somewhere, and that somewhere is here, an S3, a PVC, an OCI thingy, and so on. So this is the scope of this CSI example that Andre is building, while the other that you just mentioned has a different scope, I think, and it's more of interest of K-Serve. For sure, it will be part of a cohesive story, but I think it's a bit early.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Is there any other pending question? Okie dokie. So I think that we follow up with Liu, who had some question about some of the model registry metadata in the CNCF Slack channel. Thank you, Ramesh, for addressing that question. I just saw it this morning. But so he replied, I don't think that there is Liu in the call. We can follow up later on with things. And so the next, I don't know, Chanyakia, do you want to maybe just share with the community how you're getting on with the MLMD follow-ups, if you want? Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Matthias. So I've been working on compiling MLMD with compiling Postgres and MLMD with the OpenSSL flag so that we can connect to secure databases, which is important for the model registry operators. So I was able to get that working, and I'm currently testing stuff out, and I'll update the PR. And then the next task we're focusing on now is to add multi-tenancy to MLMD and RBAC so that we don't have to deploy MLM model registry instance for every single namespace. So I've been looking at the source code currently to work on that.
All right, thank you for the update. And just trying to, if you wanted to put any links in the minutes of the meetings of any pull request that you're building, please feel free to do so. The link, you can find it in the chat. All right, if there is any question, please raise your hand and feel free to ask your question right away, or otherwise I can just move on to the next item. So Andre, do you want to speak about matrix tracking across training, tuning, ML jobs?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I just want to quickly speak about one thing that I recently found in the model registry repo. So this PR, I think this issue was created by Mahat, right? About like the tracking the metrics for tuning jobs. So my question is like, I know that so today we have a couple of ML jobs in Kubeflow, right? For example, for training operator, we have PyTorch jobs, TF jobs. So we're planning to migrate them to the train job in the future. So basically unify CRD to handle all the distributed training job plus fine tuning. And also have the KTIP project, which is dedicated for hyperparameter tuning and NAS. And we're planning to also introduce a CRD called maybe tune job. tuning job. So my question is here, I know that right now we don't track any metrics for training, but we do track metrics for tuning. So we have our own kind of, metadata store, not metadata, basically the metric store where we store our metrics for each trial. Also, we kind of like having some specific, metrics collection systems for different type of metrics, how I want to collect them, how I want to optimize normal hyperparameter tuning optimization process. So my question is here, do we want to think about how we can reuse model registry for storing some of the metrics which could be important for different stages of AI life cycle? Like, for example, I know that for training there is a need for exporting final model, right? Also for tuning there is a need for storing optimization metrics for algorithms, right? My question is what is your plan there? Yeah, Harsh, go ahead.
So we want to follow kind of the same philosophy that we're doing for everything else. We don't actually want the model registry to become like a data store for everything. So we'll take the same approach. We'll store metadata, links to the actual metric store. So if you have it in your database wherever the metrics are, because we have no idea how big the metrics could be, right? Potentially they could be huge, and then that makes sizing and scaling the model registry to be able to handle that kind of volume of data for potentially thousands of models very hard. So we'll most likely just save it as links again to point to where the actual metrics are stored. But we do want to model that. We do want to model some sort of I hate to use the word canonical, some kind of common model, metadata model for identifying metrics for runs.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I agree with you that model registry is not the data store. It's more like the metadata location for the metrics. Because I've been looking for this proposal for I think that's where Harald actually explained what metrics you want to store for hyperparameter optimization jobs. So I think my question is how do you want to reuse this feature for other Kubeflow specific components? So some people use RayTune, right? Some people use Katib, right? Some people might use other things, right? There is some common things across different tool what you're using for your different stages of ML lifecycle, right. And how we can make a model model registry more useful.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So unless there are common ways to describe this. At the highest level, it could just be, there are parameters stored here, and we might have information about, what's the format of the parameters or metrics and so on, right? So we just store information, very high level information about that. Maybe if all these tuning services have common features, common properties that we can abstract out, maybe we can start pushing them more and more into the model registry. But yeah, if you can, if you want to start this initiative, respond to that PR and add more information, that'll be great. Because, we have folks from IBM within Red Hat as well that are also working on this. So yeah, so there's room for cooperation there and working on this together too. Come up with some common design for the metadata for metrics.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So yes, my question is more: do we want to? I know that, for example, you've been working recently for model format, right? How you store your trained artifacts, or how you want to use it within K-Serve. So I guess there is a concept of different ML metadata, right? So I have a concept about the model, we need to store the final artifacts, right? But you also need to store, for example, features. Are we going to use just Fizz for feature store to store a metadata about the features? Also, there is a concept about other metrics that have probably been used during the different stages of ML life cycle, right? For model optimization. For model optimization, you need the parameters about for your objectives, right? Accuracy, loss, or anything else you want to optimize. So I think it's question about like what is the scope, right? For which we want to use this, because MLMD and model registry kind of different, naming, right? Like
Yeah, we still use the same common types though, right? So we have a REST API where we kind of hide, some of that information, right? Abstract that out to give you a higher level types, but we are still basing it on the same underlying MLMD, core types, right? Context, artifacts, and executions, right? So I imagine metrics would be, especially because they're coming from an external data store, we would model them as artifacts. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Right? And
yes, so it's a
we would
pipeline,
create a
right?
new type for, yeah, exactly the same thing that pipeline does, right? And we would point to, wherever the metrics artifacts are stored related to a model run. A run itself, an execution, of that would be a context, right? So the context the run brings all these things together, the model data as well as the metrics data that was produced as the result of that run.
Yeah. And I think like the question is more about like the integrations, right? So for example, like the issue that I mentioned, you were speaking about like Raytune, right? So I think my question is like, what is your perspective on like what initially you want to support, or you want to like abstract like any kind of like tool you want to do for parameter optimization? You can use, like model registry to store the metrics about like not to store, but basically like, to have a
To point to that, yeah.
yep.
Yeah,
Who's going
yeah,
to do?
we would like it to be the source of truth, so to speak, right, for
Yep.
this kind of information. So yeah, if there are tools like that are doing HPO and want to support different metrics types, it would be nice if model registry API and its metadata representation was part of such tooling to go fetch that metrics metadata. Um, Honestly, we do not have enough experience within the model registry team for this. So if you can, or others within the community can lead this initiative and start these discussions with other folks that are working on storing metrics in different formats and stuff, that'll help us a lot.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So maybe, I mean, I can definitely, like start an issue. I don't know, I can start it in Katib repo, or I can start it in model registry repo, like whatever, like it's better for us to track it. But I mean, I would love to see like your roadmap, especially for the components which is like part of Qflow core, right? I mean, you've done a lot of integration with KSORF, like we haven't done integration with training, right, yet.
No.
Yeah, I think the question is like where we see the value of model registry in different stages and how we make it more useful for people who are using these components together, right?
Right. At a high level, yeah, the process is going to be, like identify all the metadata that we want to store, design the various types and stuff, right? Classify them according to basic MLMD types, context, executions, artifacts, and then add that to our REST API.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
All right. Let me open some issues, and then maybe we can follow up on this and see how we can, maybe incorporate them under your roadmap.
Awesome.
Forward. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Andre.
Thank you, Andre. Yep, Ramesh.
One pattern I keep seeing, Matteo, Dheeraj, Andre, is that we keep hearing this storage problem over and over again, right? I think we need to probably have a proper, I don't know how to phrase this. We probably need to have proper guidelines, maybe, how we want to integrate with the feature store or vector DB kind of a things, that maybe.
Yeah, for a model store, for model storage, we can, have something common, Ramesh, but for something like metrics, it totally depends on the underlying, framework or toolkit that's storing it. So they typically, bring their own store, right, for metrics.
Right. I mean, if we are using Prometheus, let's say for metrics, right? I mean, what I was going for is, hey, do we want to have a pre-baked in story saying that, hey, this is how you here is how you create the metadata for it, and with the Prometheus, here are the, as we are thinking about model storage. I'm just thinking out loud. Don't shoot me now.
No, no, that's perfectly valid. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So
just like
there
an
are two
OCI.
paths. Yeah.
OCI store, as we are saying that, hey, here is a S3 bucket, you can store a model, default
Right.
storages, or a OCI store, you can store a model. Is
Right.
that like something like hey, his Prometheus is going to be another storage, you put your stuff here and we'll have we'll make it easy as a opinionated, is that something valuable at all? Just a question.
So that's an option, right? That's an option. So basically, for metadata, right? The model registry eventually, hopefully will become sort of like a platform service, right? That's always there, and anybody or anything that wants to, store and retrieve metadata can do it with the model registry. And the question is, should model registry start, also provisioning other things that an ML platform needs, storage, for example? Then is it just storage? So my concern is, personally, we need to be careful about the scope, right? Like how many of the platform features do we want to start pulling into model registry? We don't want to. I mean, we consciously said that we don't want it to become the orchestrator of actions and services, right? Do we want it to become sort of like the de facto provisioner of storage for everything within the ML platform? Yeah, that's a question we need to ask, right? Especially if, since storage can take so many different forms, depending upon how it's the underlying framework and toolkit that's actually using it, right? So Khatib could have its own, Raytune could have its own way of storing metrics and stuff. I don't know whether there's ever going to be a situation where we can say, oh, model registry will provide storage for all. So we kind of have to be a little agnostic there. But if it turns out sort of like with OCI stores for models, if some common metrics format like Prometheus starts bubbling up as the de facto format, maybe we can start looking at make that a common store, or sort of a default store for metrics or something. The other problem is that this sort of also opens up the security can of worms, right? Like, then does the model registry become responsible for securing access to this underlying store for other services as well?
I mean,
that's my 2 cents.
I mean, I would say responsibility still needs to be on the other one, but I'm saying how we can provide easily able to configure and able to not responsible, but like a collaboratable with the other. I mean, easily integratable with the other. Yeah, that's where it, because if we use, I mean I'm sure Andrew's use case, he will go figure out the data storage and come back. But each time we bring in a different one or something, there may be a different way of doing it. And if user has to do it, it's maybe, if it's a user level task, that may be even tough, right? Yeah.
Right. It depends upon. Yeah, it also depends upon the component we are integrating with, right? So let's say,
right, exactly.
It's some metrics collection component, right? Does provisioning, storage, is that part of installing that component, or can it be made so that it could pull that storage information from some metadata that's stored in the model registry or something like that? You know what I mean? So it affects provisioning that other component as well. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it is a possibility. Yeah.
Something to investigate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's an option. Yeah,
definitely an option. What I see also is that it kind of like it falls to me on two perspective, to me in perspective. for the model files specifically, so the concrete files or the weight of the machine learning model, the story that we are exploring with the OCI, it makes sense because like it kind of like fills a gap or fills a need that the user are having. It uses Cube native technologies. So there is a good opportunity, and this is the reason why we had as well people from KubeCon raising that point as well to the repository. The things when it comes to metadata, I like more the approach of that Dheeraj was mentioning earlier about integration, because typically that is like, I don't know, there will be a specific database for time series data, or there will be a specific key value store that provides special properties for that specific need. I'm thinking about Feast more specifically. So this is where I think it will be a bit difficult to find like a good solution that sort of like providing something that fits everyone's bill of requirement. But there is definitely an opportunity to showcase a blueprint of integration that works regardless of the solution that you choose, for instance, for HPO. So that, let's say, if we have a good integration from Model Registry and HPO solution showcasing blueprint with Khatib, then if people wants to integrate their own HPO solution, if that integration is good but also general enough, it can work. It follows the similar concept that we're doing for Kserve, because for Kserve it's true that we have considered it, given that Kserve is the default out-of-the-box add-on for serving the model. But we design a solution that is not hard-coded to Kserve. It is exposing the things that we believe are needed, like what is the model format that you're trying to serve, at which version, any other kind of like links to any other metadata that will be needed. So I think that is the exercise that will provide value for Model Registry to the MLOps platform toolkit and the Kubeflow platform as a whole, if we design that in the similar way. Like we can design like a blueprint of integration, showcasing it works with a reference implementation that is Khatib, and then is like we also as well keep the option open, as we were saying, to other solutions. This is at least the way I see on that topic.
Yeah, I think so. The ML, I mean, machine learning metadata been topic for a very long time. Like it was a very hot topic for, I mean, I think since 2018, once we, like almost starting the Kubeflow project. The problem is like, it is hard to define what is like useful for people to track. Like, we have like, features, right? We have metrics, we have model lineage, right? The question is like for the entire life cycle of your model, from the, from the data preparation to training to serving step, what is the useful steps you need to track, and what is the useful steps you want to like, analyze in the future to do some, adaptation for your model to like improve your AI application, right? Yeah, I think like so your points around defining the scope will be really useful, I think, for others to like understand what we're targeting for. Are we targeting like the whole life cycle of model, which means like all of the pieces around the model needs to be part of Model Registry eventually, right? Like for example, like in other model registries, they say they kind of like maintaining the whole like model versioning, model like tracking annotations and other things around the model, which might be useful. The question is for metrics, would it be actually useful for like for end user to track these metrics in the metadata store eventually? Or like once the model is finalized, they don't really need to analyze their like their metrics during the training process, right? So these things might be unclear right now for people who do like the whole entire.
Well, I think
exactly.
yeah. I mean, once the product, the model's gone into production or something, maybe not so much, but that's a huge actually value proposition from for MLflow. When data scientists are working, with MLflow, they constantly look at like graphs and charts and stuff for different executions. So that's where we have to have it. I don't think it's an optional thing. Once we start doing, tracking experiments and runs, we have to have collect metrics for those as well, because that's where the real value add is, or value proposition is, right? To be able
Yeah.
to compare different runs and stuff, and you can't have that without metrics.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think the usefulness will become when you, for example, want to, because like usually, especially when you have some sort of LMs, you want to do checkpointing more regularly, right? You don't want to avoid overfitting, right? So you need to track in which stage of your training actually model produce the best metrics, so you can easily come back, or you can easily get another model to push to production. But sometimes you probably need to track metrics differently. So, for example, for HPO, you need to track metrics by time. So basically, you need to have some sort of different way of how you track your metrics, depending on the different algorithms or what you're doing. Yeah, I think
So that metrics happen, yeah. So that metrics tracking can still happen, differently, right?
Yeah.
Or sort of orthogonally to model registry, and model registry can still, keep metadata to link you to that information so that you get to it.
Makes sense.
How is the
Right.
KFP does that right now, though? Do they store it in the MLMD server right now, or
It's a
for
mix.
the?
It's a mix. They access the database directly as well. They have a MySQL store, but they have some links to it in pipeline metadata in
Okay,
MLMD.
so they share the instance, but not the
Right.
concept. Okay.
Yeah, and KFP, do we know like if they kind of like store the metrics in the time frame, or they only store the metrics about the pipelines and runs when they write them?
That's a good question. I don't know the details of it, but there is a MLMD metrics type.
Okay.
I'm not sure how detailed or how well kind of fleshed out it is. It might just be very high level thing, that says, oh, these metrics are in the database, and this is the database key or something like that.
All right. So I think that it's a good discussion. Andre, if you want to maybe, as you mentioned, raise a couple of issues or add to the existing one, we really value that feedback, and I think this is something that we can keep tabs on as we progress forward. Maybe can be as well. We can identify some chunk or some unit of work that we can embed for the Kubeflow 1.10 roadmap that I know is like a topic that Ramesh always pushes in this group rightfully to start to think about. I think this could be definitely a good one that also I was thinking about, that one obvious one is some form of UI. We have Heather from Red Hat actually that is starting to provide a scaffolding code for the BFFs and a front end scaffolding application, so that we can see there how the progress is going, and eventually see what can be an MVP for Kubeflow 1.10 scope there for a UI. I think also what I was thinking as well is that we have great use cases that as we are having the discussion, one is right now, another is indeed about the integration with K-Serve on improve on those blueprint and solution. So I think that can be greatly as well something for 1.10 to be considered. And of course, as we were mentioning earlier, an OCI storage blueprint or a recommendation. This is something that we can definitely, in due time, start to ramp up the progress about. So these are the main areas that we can think about. And I don't know if Ramesh, you wanted to add any points here.
I mean,
Really?
a couple others come to my mind is something that Leo is doing, Matthew, or a little bit extension of how we could more inclusive of the ML flow, how we can integrate well with that, right? Maybe we can start a proposal document towards 1.10. Start little by little. What we can do and what. one of the community meetings in next few weeks, next couple of weeks, we can go through that list and see if we have any volunteers to pick up on those.
All right. Components. So this was for more or less for the last topic in the agenda. We have just 10 minutes left. I'll give it if anyone wants to raise their hand and speak about any other topic that was not captured in the agenda notes. This is the convenient time to do it. Or otherwise, I think that I can give you back 9 minutes of your time and going once, twice. All right. So thank you all for your participation and your feedback. This was again very other interesting discussion. Dheeraj, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just getting ready to say bye.
Okay. It's all right. Okay. Thank you everybody for your participation, and just a friendly reminder, tomorrow we have the Kubeflow community meeting. All right. Have a great evening or day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.